Good morning, all. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to make sure we get a quorum and everyone to trickle in. But good morning. Good morning, all. It's 10, but we're going to give it a couple more minutes so people can trickle in. We still are waiting to get to a quorum.
Thanks, Jen. Tammy said she'll be here in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, perfect. And can someone with the last two digits of 28 know who you are, please? Someone that just joined by phone with the last digits of 28. Can you identify yourself, please?
On the phone, you may need to press *6 in order to unmute.
Yes, it's Derek Bland. I'm joining by voice from my phone and video from my computer.
Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner Roberson. I think we have a quorum now. So I'm just going to go through and call out the commission members that are here. If I do not say your name, please speak up. But we have Commissioner Roberson, Commissioner Bradford, Commissioner Roche, Commissioner Patel, Commissioner Grant, Commissioner Morgan, and Commissioner Goss. Did I miss anyone? Oh,
Commissioner Palma.
and Commissioner Palma. Thank you. Good morning.
And Commissioner Bland.
And Commissioner Bland. Oh, yes, correct. So thank you. And Commissioner Bland, you are just sitting and listening as a commissioner today, as you'll be on the project committee, I believe, scheduled for January. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here. And with that, I will turn it over to the co-chair, Commissioner Roberson.
All right, good morning, everyone. We'll start the first order of business with our usual statement regarding the virtual nature of the meeting. The project committee of the Critical Area Commission is holding this meeting virtually This meeting is being held using Google Meet and will be streamed live to the public. The public will be able to view the meeting from the Commission's website, and the meeting will be closed captioned. Minutes of the meeting will be provided on our website. So with that, we'll move to the first order of business, and that's going to be the October 22nd minutes approval. So may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you. May I have a second motion?
Second, Commissioner Bradford.
Thank you. And then any amendments or discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
Aye.
Any denials? Any abstentions?
Commissioner Patel, I wasn't present at the meeting.
All right, noted. All right, with that, we can move on to our second agenda item, which is the project committee will vote on is the Maryland Department of Transportation's request to repeal and replace the current MDOT Critical Area Commission Memorandum of Understanding. Jonathan will be presenting on the updated MOU, so I will turn the meeting over to Jonathan.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberson. Okay, what can everyone see?
We see the PowerPoint and it's in the right mode.
All right, there we go. That makes me more excited than here in lunchtime. All right, so we can get started. Good morning. My name is Jonathan Copeland, and today I will be presenting the MDOT CAC MOU update. I'm joined by representatives from MDOT. Critical Area Commission staff recommend approval of the updated 2025 Maryland Department of Transportation Critical Area Commission Memorandum of Understanding. Please note the updates found in the staff report are 95% complete. CAC and MDOT staff are working diligently to get the administrative language updated to better reflect roles and responsibilities. The final draft will be provided at the full commission meeting on December 17th. The Maryland Department of Transportation, or MDOT, entered into a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, with the Critical Area Commission originally in 2003 to develop a detailed process and procedures for how MDOT activities in the critical area would be reviewed. The original 2003 MOU was recently replaced in 2019 and later amended in 2021 to capture additional requirements. The most recent 2021 amended MOU can be found in Attachment A of the staff report. The MOU is being updated in 2025 to formalize the MDOT Model Ecosystem Mitigation Banking Program framework to allow each modal administration within MDOT the ability to establish banking agreements. Additionally, some terminology will be updated along with roles and responsibilities. These updates will be focused on sections 5 and 9, respectively, of the MOU. The purpose and need for these updates stems from the desire of Maryland State Highway Administration's request to utilize mitigation banking for future projects. The language in the MOU requires the banking program to be established before modal administrations request a bank. CAC and MDOT have worked on updating the MOU to allow for the modals the ability to fully utilize the provisions, such as mitigation banking. These updates are needed before SHA can pursue banking. A work group in 2024 made up of SHA, CSC staff, and 5 commissioners worked through the mitigation banking program to set up the framework needed for the updates. Section 5 of the MOU deals with mitigation and how banking can be achieved by the modal administrations. MDOT and the commission worked together to create a model ecosystem mitigation banking program as required by the 2021 MOU. This program would provide the framework on how mitigation banking sites would be established, how credits would be calculated, and how sites would be maintained. This program would be titled Exhibit B for the MOU. The 2025 MOU clarifies that Exhibit B has been established. Each modal administration will have their own Exhibit B labeled B1 through 5, which will allow them the ability to develop a mitigation banking agreement to be approved by the commission to establish their own banking program based off Exhibit B. This information can be found on page 5 of Attachment A of the staff report. Section 9 subsequently needed to be updated as this section contains provisions regarding amendments to the overall MOU and its exhibits A1 through 5. The 2025 updates would allow for the repeal and replacement and amendment of new exhibits B1 through 5 along with exhibits A1 through 5. Minor amendments would require only notification to the full commission, while any substantial modifications, including repeal and replace of the exhibits, would require full commission approval. These updates would provide commission staff and MDOT the ability to make small alterations and modifications to the MOU without requiring a full commission vote each time. Additionally, the use of electronic signatures was added to the 2025 MOU. This information can be found on page 7 of attachment A of the staff report. Lastly, the 2025 updates provides a reference page that identifies the exhibits A1 through 5 and B1 through 5 and mechanisms to track approvals and amendments for each modal administration's exhibits. This information can be found on the page 9 and 10 of attachment A of the staff report. Critical Area Commission staff recommend approval of the updated 2025 Maryland Department of Transportation Critical Area Commission Memorandum of Understanding that clarifying changes to the Memorandum of Understanding be updated prior to the December 17th Commission meeting. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Commissioner Roberson.
All right. Are there any questions from commission staff? If so, please raise your virtual hand. I have a question related to the order of preference. I know that the order goes, mitigation within the critical area, within the 8-digit watershed. Then it goes to mitigate within the critical area on land owned by the respective jurisdiction. Then mitigate within the critical area and county, and then it says, then it's identified as provide a fee in lieu payment, and then mitigation banks. While I recognize that there is a preference to have, the impacts mitigated as close as possible, I wanted to, have a conversation related to like the in lieu fee payment. Piece doesn't mention anything about like project location to impact. It's not mentioned, and so I guess looking at the order, wondering if mitigation banks would be maybe a higher priority than payment into the in lieu fee. Mitigation banks are generally preferred because they offer a higher degree of assurance for ecological success. They're usually larger projects, so you get a little bit more of an impact. And then usually there's timely implementation. With the in lieu fee, there's a delay of when the impacts occur, as opposed to when the project that's being proposed for mitigation is occurring. So I guess just wanting some thoughts maybe from staff or if there's any SHA representatives about those last two like priorities, in that the in lieu fee having a higher priority to mitigation banks.
Yeah, and I can touch base on that. So I guess when we were working through this banking program, we tried our best working with SHA to try to keep all impacts mitigations based off the impacts as close as possible to the project site. So, we wanted to be either on site or close to site, within local jurisdictions lands, within at least the county. And the last thing was the fee in lieu. So we kind of thought about that as, the last opportunity for a local jurisdiction, either a county, town, it doesn't really matter. The opportunity to have, if they had a shelf ready or shovel ready, for those not in construction, those are, it's like going to the grocery store, grabbing a box of cereal off the shelf, it's ready to go at that time. So that was kind of our thought process. Really, we understand that, some of these fee and lieu projects need a lot more money than what potentially would be provided from the mitigation, but it gives that at least that last opportunity to the local jurisdiction to accomplish, a project that they thought was really grand and really, unique to their area that they could accomplish, but just didn't have the funds. Now, it's not the end all be all. There's not a shelf ready, project, because usually with SHA, and I'm assuming with the rest of the modal administrations, if they're federally funded, they have to use that funds within the contract timeline, or the contract stays open. They can never close it out. And the federal government usually doesn't want their money laying around in someone else's pot for X amount of time. So, if there's not a shelf ready, shovel ready project, then it should go down to the banks. And I guess keep in mind with these banks, once they're established, they're automatically giving a benefit to the critical area. The banks are the last, safety net for SHA. Once they've exhausted all these opportunities, it is the last safety net. So they're not scrambling, trying to come up with something last minute and end up having the ad date or advertisement date for the project slip. And that causes a whole bunch of issues with obviously scheduling and funding. So that was kind of our thought process. I know that was a lot, but it was mostly to give the jurisdictions the last opportunity to get a project in the ground if they so choose or had it ready.
I hear you on giving the flexibility to the county, but it doesn't. There's no like guardrails or safeguards in place, like for like the in lieu fee payment option. There's no mention of like the proximity to the actual impacts. So if there's a mitigation bank that's closer, then where the shovel ready project that could be used for the fee in lieu, I guess that is still, that's not really addressed like through this order of preference.
Yeah, and I think when SHA or any of the modal administrations comes up with a mitigation site or a plan for mitigation or how to satisfy it, that still has the critical area commission staff still have the opportunity to, say like, hey, this is probably not going to work. Maybe just move to the bank. It's just the priority of which we want to see it. If they're trying to plan a project, I don't know, it's Charles County, and it's on the other side and the mitigation bank's right here, I think, we would probably suggest them to use the bank. Because it doesn't really make sense to go further away. But, this is really our last opportunity to try to let the local jurisdiction, especially at a smaller level, the opportunity to get some type of plannings on their, land instead of all being shifted over to a regional bank that, might not benefit them as much as a smaller project would. So that was just kind of the thought process.
All right, I see other hands are up, so I think we'll maybe turn it over to those raised hands. I feel like Commissioner Hans had her hand raised, but I don't see it anymore.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Just to follow up on this, I think it's a great question, Commissioner, in terms of the fee in lieu. And I understand what you're saying verbally, Jonathan, but I agree that I don't think the language of the, the draft here that we're looking at quite reflects that yet. Maybe there's some clarifying language we could add in there, because I think in both places where the fee in lieu is mentioned, there's like slightly different verbiage, and so there's maybe a way to explain that there's, like you said, maybe a geographic kind of explanation, or I'm not sure if the term shovel ready is used anywhere else in our MOUs. So maybe there's another word for it, a better word for it. But if ultimately we're trying to drive, plants in the ground first, closest to the site, then generally speaking, a jurisdiction's fee in lieu program is a way for that money to sit around for a while, right? So, I'm not sure exactly. I don't have like perfect verbiage at the moment, but maybe we could clarify something about the readiness of the project, or the sooner the better. I don't know. I think could be a geographic and a time constraint maybe that we could put around those last two to make sure that, you know, these projects are going to get going and happen in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and that's definitely understandable. I guess, as stated before, usually, for the most part, from my understanding, is that those funds cannot sit around because the contract would stay open. And SHA, I use SHA just because I work there, so I kind of understand. But I'm assuming the middle administrations all want to close their contracts out because it would continue on having to be open. They want to just get it off their books. So there is like a slight timeline, but there is nothing stated in the MOU, which you are correct. And I think that's something we can address since this is only 95% potentially done, and we want maybe some language change. I think if we could talk with MDOT maybe about switching the two. I'm not sure if they would have the worst heartache about it, but that's something we can clarify with them.
All right, Jen, you had your hand up.
Hi, yes, I just want to add just a little bit of clarification. The Exhibit B that's attached to the MDOT MOU is really just a template that was mirrored off of SHA's Exhibit B, which is allowing for the mitigation banks to be established, which will be presented right after this. That order of preference did come out of the work group, from my understanding and memory, if it serves me correctly. But we do have SHA here today. I think that if we're hearing from the project committee today that there would be a better preference to put things, the funding to the banks prior to a fee in lieu. Obviously, if we change the preference in the template, that might impact the order of how it is for SHA. So I'd like to just make sure that that is amenable, and maybe they have another reason for that. But at the end of the day, no matter the situation, commission staff will be reviewing all of the mitigation proposals, and we would have more of a say on this. The preference would actually be this way, but it would be good to have a more clear pathway. And so if that's okay, if SHA is able to kind of speak to that in order of priority, and if there would be any issues with going to the bank prior to a fee in lieu.
Well, I think also the concern or the options are, the mitigation bank or clarifying the fee in lieu payment, having some criteria that's set related to the proximity or the location of a project that's being done through the in lieu fee and the timing. So I think there's flexibility there. I think there's just more. I think the fee in lieu is it's a little generic, general right now in how it's stated, and that some guardrails or criteria should be set. But I'll let Commissioner Hance speak.
Yeah, I agree, Commissioner Robertson. And another way potentially that I could see working based on what you've described, like if we're talking about fee in lieu for a shovel-ready project that's in the jurisdiction that the jurisdiction totally plans to do and they were going to do anyway, that's not like a great text for for this amendment, but that makes sense as geographically and like intentionally prioritized over than maybe a generic ecosystem bank. But then I guess last of all would be a generic fee in lieu. Does that make sense? Like a very specific project that just needs the extra funding that's close, great. But if it's just going into the general fund, like a general fee in lieu would, that's least preferable because, realistically, we don't know when that's going to happen. Does that make sense?
No, and that makes sense. I think maybe potentially some wordage change to be very specific on how the fee in lieu payment for the priority would work. Might have to be changed, but
Or like,
And I think it'd be good to hear maybe SHA, when they come to bring their project right after this, but it's kind of the chicken and the egg kind of thing.
Jen, you had some additional comments you wanted to provide, maybe?
Yeah, actually, this is Nick.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, based on what Rosa was saying, and this is what we were kind of thinking about here. So we are trying to work on an updated fee and lieu document, because one of the things that I think is a priority with the commission moving forward is this idea of sort of pooled mitigation, or this idea of using mitigation for sort of larger ecosystem services projects. And so I wonder if there is potentially maybe the tweak to the MOU is something where you have that ranking order, and maybe prior to mitigation bank, there's something like fee in lieu to support a priority community restoration project that's been approved by the commission, then go to mitigation bank, then go to fee in lieu. So it's not sort of like that mitigation that's just sitting there forever, but maybe if there's a project that we're trying to get pooled mitigation together, that maybe becomes like the third priority, then mitigation bank, then fee in lieu is the absolute last resort. So I wanted to throw that out there as potentially maybe a solution that gets to what Commissioner Hans was talking about, what you've been talking about, Commissioner Robertson.
Thanks for that, Nick. Brian, Commissioner Roche?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, mine might be more of a question, and I'm sorry if I'm not familiar entirely with the MAU, but one of the things that I thought would be important is I have a hard time believing there isn't a mitigation possibility somewhere in the state at all times. And one of that is just knowing that like various nonprofits, particularly on the Eastern Shore, like the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy or Shore Rivers, I mean, they've always got some kind of project going on. And I just wanted to know if SHA, when they reach out, I mean, we've got their designated sites, but, do they, to make sure that the money or the mitigation goes where it's needed most, is that part of the MOU, or is this just all sort of insular within the state? It either goes to the general fund as a fee or to the pre-approved mitigation sites?
I guess I'm a little confused. So like with the projects, it can't obviously be without the entire state, because the mitigation is supposed to serve the critical areas, so it kind of limits it to those surrounding jurisdictions. But I guess the language really is maybe a little bit vague in terms of shovel ready projects. So hopefully it just doesn't go, and it really can't sit in the general fund. It has to be ready to use just from their contracts. They need to use those funds, and just can't be sitting there for 10 years. So I think maybe clarifying that would be good. And I guess when it comes to nonprofits, SHA does a fairly good job at when they're doing mitigation site selection in terms of reaching out to even nonprofits to see what they have, because building a mitigation site is very expensive. And so if you're able to achieve mitigation without having to buy the land and plant it and then keep it monitored for in perpetuity, they would probably prefer that any day. I think they do a pretty good diligent job, but might have to just hear from them following this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that kind of answers your question, and that leaves you on a limb.
Sorry, Commissioner Goss?
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just wanted to add a little note from MDOT. I know we're talking about SHA a lot, and we've got them on the call as well, but just to confirm that this question, as far as the use of federal funds for mitigation, would apply to almost every single one of our other projects that come through the modes, because of the way that MDOT is funded. Just wanted to make sure that context was known, that while we keep talking about SHA, if other modes do pick up this mitigation banking exhibit, that this question would come up for those as well.
All right, any other comments? All right, so I'm going to look for some assistance to commission staff to help with I guess, coming up with a motion. So are we thinking that there's some clarification related to the fee in lieu? Update is needed for the MOU for approval, and that can be a condition with the motion for clarification be provided to the commission.
I guess, Nick, if you're there, it's kind of the chicken and the egg kind of thing, because this template is essentially SHA's mitigation banking agreement program. So if we change it here, obviously it would have to be changed there, but we would want to hear from them first. So
SHA has a hand raised.
Hello, thanks. Just wanted to clarify, we thought there was going to be two motions discussed today. One is just for everyone to agree to make a change to the MOU. And then the second one was to actually go through the technical guidance document and then discuss that one specifically. So I feel like we kind of combined the two. Am I seeing that correctly?
Eric, SHA's is right after this. We have to approve this one first before we can approve SHA's, if that makes sense.
So are we talking about the guidance document or are we talking about the MOU change?
This is the MOU change, but Exhibit B has to be established in order for Exhibit B1, which is SHA's, to be approved.
Okay. I thought that the mitigation selection is in B1.
Correct, but B1 has that information, but in order for B1 to even exist, Exhibit B has to be established. And so for an Exhibit B to be established, this committee has to approve those changes within the memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
So Tammy, sorry, are you, I think, looking for more clarification under the condition for a motion today? And I think what we were hoping to is we can work on clarifying it and having that done prior to the December 17th commission meeting. We are still working with NDOT to just ensure some non-substantive language is final and approved by NDOT anyway. So we could be more specific under A to address also the mitigation priority section of Exhibit B, which I guess before doing that, I was hoping just to make sure from SHA, because whatever we do change in the NDOT MOU and the Exhibit B could ultimately impact what we're going to be talking about next, which is SHA's Exhibit B1, which is for their mitigation banks to be established. But we could add that clarifying or to I guess more clarify what we need to do prior to the December 17th meeting. And would that suffice the body's concerns today? So meaning that we will work on clarifying the in order priority section or making the fee in lieu more specific and other clarifying changes prior to the December 17th meeting.
And if we have to, we can modify A up here to have a bulleted listed that helps the committee feel more comfortable with that motion. Oh, Emily's coming in to help.
Good morning, everyone. I think the clearer we can be in this motion, obviously, the better for various reasons, right? So that we can ensure that the committee is comfortable with what is being voted on, but also so that commission staff and MDOT recognize what the goal is to accomplish between now and the full commission meeting. So in that vein, I think one thing that would be helpful to me, for example, is in the attachment, which we're calling Exhibit B, can we identify the specific section and page, for example, that we are trying to clarify, update, have more conversations about, whatever it is, so that at least everybody is on the same page about that specific, that one component of the document, so that it's clear that apart from the non-substantive changes that MDOT and Critical Area Commission staff are still finalizing, and apart from whatever this very small portion of the exhibit that is still being worked out, everything else hopefully is good to go. Does that make sense?
So it'd be good to have the specific section and page right now so that Commissioner Robertson can read out the staff or the motion.
I think what we need is a B, right? So in whatever motion we're going to have, right? That there will be some non-substantive clarifying changes that that MDOT and Critical Area Commission staff are continuing to work out prior to the commission meeting. And then there would be a B, that whatever is being requested from the committee, and that needs to be articulated a little bit more, that whatever those changes are to blank page and blank section of the MOU of the exhibit, also will be finalized prior to the commission meeting.
And I don't know if you're able to pull up or get out of the presentation mode to work on that live, but I can tell you this section and the.
Can everyone see what I'm doing right now?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize for my spelling right now. I'm just
It is, the document is Exhibit B, Model Ecosystem Mitigation Banking Program, Technical Guidance Document for Mitigation Banks. And it's section 3 on page 2. Section 3 is mitigation selection. And I think ahead of that is that commission staff will work with, or that, yeah.
Thanks, Rosemary. Yeah.
Sorry, I should read that. Let's see.
or commission staff right here.
We'll work with, start with that. Work with MDOT to add clarifying geographic or just clarifying, I guess, language as it relates to the Exhibit B document. Say that Exhibit B, and then maybe add some more specificity towards the end, specifically to the fee and lieu component and area and the geographic areas and timing of how fee and lieu will be spent. That probably needs to be worsened up.
Project construction, maybe.
And the, I guess, implementation.
Or geography and readiness.
Implemented.
Okay, do you want me to get in here now?
That would be great.
Okay, can we start in the first paragraph where it says commission staff recommend approval, blah, 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 blah. Okay, at the end of that, can you add, with the following conditions, right? Because now we have two. And then condition A needs to be a full sentence at this point. So since, so it needs to say something, however it is that we're going to proceed, right? Commission staff and MDOT shall coordinate on finalizing non-substantive changes to the MOU prior to the December 17th commission. Non-substantive changes.
Finalizing non-substantive. Hey. Nope.
Okay.
Soon.
All right. And then for B, commission staff shall,
Apologies.
that's okay, shall work with MDOT to clarify the mitigation selection language on page 2 of Exhibit B. Shall work with MDOT to clarify, so take out add, to clarify the mitigation selection language on page 2 of Exhibit B.
Apologies.
Oh, no,
Commission
don't
staff
take all
shall
that.
work-
No,
Oh. All right. Let's
Undo.
come back.
Okay, so just take out the add in the first line of B.
First line would be at.
Add, remove add.
Yep.
To clarify the mitigation selection language on page 2 of Exhibit B, to clarify, blah, 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 blah. And then regarding how after Exhibit B, go
Okay.
back up to Exhibit B.
Okay.
Okay, regarding how fee in lieu funds will be implemented.
Will be what?
Implemented.
Implemented. All right. Is it okay if I remove everything from here?
Yep. Geographic, and then in the parentheses, you can put e.g. geographic scope and readiness. Just put in e.g. No.
Keep readiness and then EG.
No, before geographic. Put
Okay.
e.g. Comma. Yep. Geographic scope
Geographic scope.
and readiness. Okay, now back to you guys. Go for it. Tell me if it actually says what you mean it to say. Rosa, Tammy, go to town.
I was following along. Does any commissioner have any comments related to the conditions that are in front of us? All right, maybe no commissioner, but we have Chair Fisher.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not to stir the pot at all, but it sounded like a good chunk of the conversation was about priority order. So I'm wondering if we need the word prioritized and right before implemented.
Yes, love it.
All right, any comments to Chair Fisher's addition? All right, hearing none, we'll move forward with the motion. May I have a motion to approve the updated memorandum of understanding between the Maryland Department of Transportation and the Critical Area Commission with the following conditions. A, commission staff and MDOT shall coordinate on finalizing the non-substantive changes to the memorandum of understanding prior to the December 17th commission meeting. And B, commission staff shall work with MDOT to clarify the mitigation selection language on page 2 of Exhibit B regarding how fee and lieu funds will be prioritized and implemented, such as geographic scope and readiness.
Commissioner Palmer moves with the conditions.
Thank you, Commissioner Palmer. May I have a second motion?
Commissioner Grant, second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I have to do any discussion on the motion first. Sorry. I think we've been there, but I do need to, I guess, ask that. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any commissioner denying? And finally, any commissioner abstaining?
Commissioner Goss abstaining.
All right, thank you. With that, we can, I think, close the books on this, and which has now set the stage for the for the next agenda item, which is the MDOT mitigation banking program for the creation of the MDOT mitigation banking program. So this we'll be voting on this today, and it is the State Highway Administration's creation of an ecosystem mitigation banking program. And Jonathan will once again present. And with that, we'll turn it over to Jonathan.
All right, just 1 second. This up. And as always, are you guys seeing my presentation and nothing else?
Yes, and it's in presentation mode.
All right, there we go. All right, 2 of 2. Oops. Guys, good morning. My name is Jonathan Copeland, and today I will be presenting the Exhibit B1 State Highway Administration Guidance Documents for Mitigation Banking. Today, I'm joined by representatives from State Highway Administration. This document is being brought to the project committee for approval. The document will be an exhibit to the just approved Exhibit B, allowing for the creation of model ecosystem mitigation banking program for each of the modal administrations. Critical Area Commission staff recommend approval of the Exhibit B1 State Highway Administration Technical Guidance Document for Mitigation Banking. Just a brief recap, Maryland Department of Transportation is the agency that deals with transportation goals and safety within our state. This agency is comprised of modal administrations or modals. Each modal governs and regulates a specific part of transportation like flights, bridges, tolls, buses, and motor vehicles. For this presentation, we will focus on the Maryland State Highway Administration. The Maryland State Highway Administration, or SHA, deals with roads and bridges throughout the state. The administration breaks the state into 7 districts. Each district provides construction and maintenance oversight for the SHA right-of-way. The critical area spans 5 of the 7 districts. 7 districts, apologize. As Maryland's population and urban development continue to grow, infrastructure upgrades are becoming necessary to address the rising demands of the state. While SHA does its best to reduce and minimize its impacts during construction or maintenance, impacts to regulated resources like the critical area are sometimes unavoidable. These impacts often require mitigation, but finding that mitigation is not always the easiest. Site location, timing, and cost all play a role in the availability of mitigation sites that SHA can procure outside of the right-of-way. This leaves SHA in a bind. As advertisement dates or ad dates is often set a set timeline that all departments within SHA must meet. This timeline is set due to both federal and state funding, as well as the general need for the project to be constructed. Since mitigation is required for permits and permits are required for the project to be advertised, this puts SHA in a tough situation. To alleviate this problem, SHA coordinated with the commission staff to utilize Section 5 of the MDOT CAC Memorandum of Understanding to address mitigation through the creation of mitigation banks. Section 5 of the MOU allows for the creation of a model ecosystem mitigation banking program that provides the framework for each of the modals to create their own program. The program was titled Exhibit B, and each modal program thereafter will be titled Exhibit B1 through 5. For this presentation, we are focused on Exhibit B1, which is SHA's mitigation banking guidance. Back in 2024, SHA, CAC staff, and Commissioners Tammy Robertson, Catherine McCall, Annie Richards, and Sean Kiernan, and Rosa Hans collaborated to get this technical guidance document, Exhibit B1, started. The work group met at each stage to discuss the proposal and ensure it met the Commission and SHA's goals. Through that work group, SHA was able to construct this exhibit. Exhibit B1 provides the structure on how SHA will locate, plant, monitor, and maintain critical area mitigation sites throughout the critical area. We will go over each attachment of Exhibit B1. This document can be found as Attachment A of the staff report. Attachment 1 provides an overview on site analysis. In general, mitigation banks shall be located within the critical area, but can occur outside with CSC approval. The banks will have a service area similar to wetland and waterway mitigation for MDE and United States Army Corps of Engineers using the federal Huck 8 watershed. Site selection will be given to priority to areas within the critical area buffer, overburdened and underserved communities, areas supporting rare species, and lands with limited forest cover or potential for preservation. Attachment B of the staff report provides more information on how sites are selected using desktop analysis and procedures for submittal to CSC staff. Attachment 2 provides details on how mitigation credits are calculated, reviewed, and approved. Each mitigation bank will have a different credit balance based on the size of the site, the density of plantings, and the type of mitigation provided, buffer, non-buffer, forest, or FIDS. Credits are approved and released by CSC staff and tracked using a ledger similar to wetland and waterway mitigation credits discussed earlier. More information can be found on Attachment C of the staff report. Attachment 3 establishes the requirement of planting agreement for each mitigation bank. The document includes details on the size of the site, plant quantities, responsible parties, and ensures compliance through signatures. The agreement provides site documentation for current conditions and potential management actions before and after planting. Please see Attachment D of the staff report for more information. Attachment 4 provides reporting requirements for the site as well as maintenance procedures by the applicant. The attachment allows for reporting of survival rates of planted species, invasive species present, and management methods, and site condition assessments. These monitoring and maintenance records will allow SHA and CSC staff to track the long-term performance of each mitigation bank, which could help in future site selection. More information can be found on Attachment E of the staff report. Attachment 5 serves as a tracking mechanism for SHA and CAC. For each bank's credits and debits, the ledger includes site location, approval and planning dates, credit types, and release schedule. Each SHA project is debited from a bank will specify the project location, amount of credits to be debited, and type of debit. The credit release schedule, similar to the wetland and waterway mitigation crediting, will be utilized to ensure maintenance and monitoring of the site is completed by the applicant. More information can be found on Attachment F of the staff report. Attachment C provides documentation on the transaction at each mitigation bank. The form outlines the credits deducted, the type of mitigation credited, and the remaining balance at each bank. This form will be used until all credits within the bank have been exhausted. More information can be found on Attachment G of the staff report. As stated earlier in this presentation, SHA faced a challenge of securing critical area mitigation and is left in a time crunch to fulfill requirements. These banks will be utilized when on-site mitigation is not feasible and off-site locations are not available. SHA will first prioritize finding mitigation within the same 8-digit watershed as the impacts within lands owned by the respective jurisdictions in which the impacts occur, within the same county as the impacts, and using fee and lieu. Once those options have been exhausted, SHA will request to use approved mitigation banks. SHA may use credits through these approved banks for forest and tree clearing, ground disturbance in the buffer, clearing of FIDS habitat, and 10% pollutant reduction requirements that cannot be met on-site, off-site, or within the same watershed. Based on the information provided in the work group collaboration with SHA, Commission staff recommend approval of the Exhibit B1 State Highway Administration Technical Guidance Documents for Mitigation Banks. I will turn it back over to you, Commissioner Robertson.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jonathan, SHA, or I don't know if there's any representatives for SHA? I'm assuming other than the previous comments that are applicable to this agenda item, I'm assuming we will just want to move those conditions onto this this motion.
Yeah, I guess, Emily, would we just take B from the previous motion and just attach it to this, since it only B really applies to the recommendation?
I think we would just need to, it wouldn't be a cut and paste. What we would need to do here for the motion would say, recommend approval of the exhibit. And then we would just need to add, to the end of that sentence, we'll just continue the sentence. Recommend approval of the exhibit, I guess with any additional modifications finalized between MDOT and the commission staff in exhibit B, maybe something like that, just so we're taking whatever changes, if the committee is comfortable with this, taking whatever changes are made in the original model in exhibit B and pulling them into exhibit B1 once those are figured out.
All right, are there any other questions or comments that any commissioners would like to share? Commissioner Hans?
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully this is a quick clarifying question. I remember, though it was a while ago, that we were first looking at the original proposal, and I think this has come a long way, and I'm pleased with where we are and the final tweaks that we've discussed in the prior agenda item. My recollection was that there were a number of sites that were identified during that time that we were originally discussing mitigation banking. Are those sites, with the approval of this document, would those sites then be able to be used for mitigation banking? I guess that's, clarifying question. I might have a follow-up depending on what the answer is.
I believe those banks were approved, and so the ability to use those banks, I believe, would be approved based off this state highway. Is that your understanding? If I apologize, it's been a little bit since those were discussed.
John, our understanding is that the sites that have been identified for potential mitigation banks, we're going to have to provide a mitigation banking submittal for each one formal approval. So we assume that we'll start with Piney Point and Quebec since they're in the ground.
Yeah, so you guys were just waiting on this last part.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Allie.
Sure thing.
Yep. Thank you for the clarification. And then, so essentially with the approval of this, then the prioritization will kick into place. And because some of them are already shovel ready or potentially already done, that's why we would be running through this list afterwards. Okay.
Yeah, so since some of these are already in the ground, it just allows SHAs to potentially utilize them, but that's obviously going to be based off of if we tweak the language within Exhibit B.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit confused then, because if, let's just say, the Piney Point right around the corner for me is already in the ground, so then how would we utilize this prioritization sequence in before using the approved mitigation bank, providing fee in lieu to the county? Like, functionally, I don't understand how that would work. or would this just be for future projects?
I guess I'm a little. Are you wondering like how it'd be credited and debited if it's already in the ground?
Mm-hmm.
So those sites were approved by this commission as usable sites. So they would still have to go through this process. Correct me if I'm wrong, State Highway, to get them to actually be banks that they can credit and debit from. So the prioritization list, unless it changes with Exhibit B, would still stay the same. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Hans, or did I make you a little bit more confused?
I'm a touch more confused, but go ahead, Jennifer.
Sorry, so I think to back up a little bit from the work group, what came out of that work group was the comfort level of utilizing federal HUC 8, I guess, watershed area to establish potentially these regional bank concepts, and to also recognize that SHA has outstanding mitigation that they have to fulfill. And we had to set up now a procedural mechanism for them to be able to actually formalize these sites as banks. We had to start with the MDOT MOU because that's kind of the governing document to then work into a template for SHA. They would still run through that in order prioritization list, but the fact that they have this outstanding mitigation, they're unable to satisfy that mitigation with that list, they're going to just go to the banks. But I do still understand that level of confusion or concern on why do we have it set up that way to begin with, which maybe was not fully recognized in the work group discussion at the time. Now that we have everything kind of worked together, again, we can work on finalizing that list to make a little bit more, I think, sense from what I'm hearing from the body of today's meeting. So does that answer your question, Commissioner Hans?
Yeah, I think so. The conversations were long, and I don't remember, we had a lot of discussion then. We didn't approve a final document, so it's great to see a lot of this like now at this stage. I think, yeah, just following up between now, like I think I'm good with this motion. It makes sense to me.
All right, so seeing no other hands, we will move forward with a motion. May I have a motion to approve the staff recommendation to approve Exhibit B1, which is the State Highway Administration Technical Guidance Document for Mitigation Banks, with any additional modifications finalized between MDOT and Commission staff in Exhibit B. I don't know if that read real well, but okay. May I have a motion?
So moved. Commissioner Hans.
Thank you. May I have a second to the motion to approve Exhibit B1?
Commissioner Grant, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Grant. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any commissioner denying? And finally, any commissioner abstaining? All right, great. That wraps up item number 2, and we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the final project on today's agenda that the project committee will be voting on, which is the University of Maryland, Baltimore Donaldson Brown Pavilion. And Maggie White will present the project. And so we'll turn it over.
Thank you, SHA. Sorry. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. We'll let Maggie get set up.
All
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you see that?
Looks good.
Perfect. All right, give me 1 second here. All right, so good morning. My name is Maggie White. I am one of the natural resource planners here with the Critical Area Commission. And today I will be presenting the Donaldson Brown Riverfront Event Center Pavilion project proposal, which is a mouthful. I would like to thank Michelle Hardin, Kevin Smith, Jennifer Coulahan, and John Beidenbach for being on the call with me today on behalf of the University of Maryland, Baltimore to assist with any questions related to this project. The Donaldson Brown Riverfront Event Center, which refers to the entire estate, is located in Cecil County, shown on the map in the upper left-hand corner here. The mansion is located along the Susquehanna River and Port Deposit and can be seen circled on the map on this slide. The site itself is approximately 23 acres and is located almost entirely within the resource conservation area of the critical area. And a brief history of the site. The Donaldson Brown Mansion was built in 1938 at University of Maryland, Baltimore, which I will be referring to as UMB from here on out, was willed 20 acres of Donaldson Brown's estate, including the mansion, in 1965. UMB has kept the mansion in its original condition, and the estate is now used as an event venue for weddings, guided history tours, education, and conferences. This is considered a non-conforming grandfathered use of the site. Approximately 55 events were held at the Donaldson Brown Mansion in 2024, and the prime season for outdoor events are early spring, early summer, and fall. As the space is currently being used, temporary tents are erected on the site in the back of the mansion to accommodate outdoor events. We are here today to discuss a pavilion proposal to replace the need for this temporary setup. The photo on the right here shows where the tents are typically set up without the tents on site, but you can kind of see what the ground looks like there. Due to the need for a more permanent outdoor event solution, UMB is proposing a pavilion to be built on the site. The project is being brought forth to the project committee today for conditional approval under COMAR 270206 due to the non-water dependent structures being built within the critical area buffer that has been expanded for steep slopes, and the formalization to expand a non-conforming existing use on the site. Here we can take a look at the proposed design for the pavilion, which will have a roof, concrete floors, and open sides. Mitigation for permanent impacts to the expanded buffer is required at a 3-to-1 ratio. The total required buffer mitigation associated with this project is 0.33 acres or 14,553 square feet. The 10% pollutant removal requirement for this project is 0.18 pounds of phosphorus per year. So with that being said, here we can take a closer look at the project being proposed. The yellow outline here shows the location for the proposed 4,275 square foot pavilion. The critical area buffer on this site is expanded for steep slopes, as I mentioned before, and that is shown by the blue line on this aerial. The red dotted outline shown here is open space that is used for events on site, which is remaining open space. Please note also that this is an older aerial image. The tree that is shown within the outline of the pavilion is no longer on the site, and there is no tree clearing associated with this project. Here we can see where the proposed planting of 70 native shrubs used as a filter strip will be. These will be planted along the steep slope at the edge of the property, providing some extra erosion control measures. And for a bit more context, this is what the edge of the property that faces the Susquehanna River looks like. This is fenced off for safety reasons, as there is a steep drop off with limited vegetation. And this is an older photo. For a more updated photo, this is what the new fence looks like. It's taller and has been installed along these rocks, so people can't go out on the rocks. The far left photo is a view of the fence if you were to walk out of the back of the mansion, and that area, this grassy area, is where that filter strip is being proposed. And the right photo kind of shows what the other side of the fence looks like with the rocky conditions. The filter strip will be planted on the inside of the fence. Here we can see the proposed native tree and shrub cluster plantings. Due to limited area within the buffer, some of the cluster plantings are outside of the expanded buffer. All cluster planting locations were chosen to expand already existing forested areas on site. And here we can see an example of one of those forested areas. You can see in this photo, there's been a significant loss of ash trees due to emerald ash borer, and the cluster plantings are intended to help expand on this forested area. The blue shown near the proposed pavilion site on this slide shows the mitigation plantings that will be used to mitigate ground disturbance on the site. And finally, here we can see in the brighter green, the proposed plantings to achieve the 10% reduction requirement. The location of these plantings were chosen along the roadway to help with stormwater runoff. Additional agency approvals on October 29th, Maryland Historical Trust determined this project will have no adverse effect to the historical properties on the site. In a letter dated September 30th, the Department of Natural Resources, Wildlife and Heritage Service identified no rare or threatened species of concern at the project site, and therefore no design restrictions are in place. And a letter from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service dated September 15th indicated that the following species may be located within the project vicinity: green floater mussel, northern long-eared bat, tricolored bat, and monarch butterflies. However, it was also noted that there are no critical habitats, refuge lands, or fish hatcheries within the project area. So UMB is required to further coordinate with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service should the scope of the project change in any manner that may affect these aforementioned species. As noted before, this project occurs entirely within the expanded buffer. Therefore, conditional approval by the Commission is required. When reviewing projects of this nature, the county must demonstrate and the Commission must consider how the proposal addresses the requirements for conditional approval under COMAR 270206. You can find the entire list of conditional approval requirements on the staff report, but I am going to summarize a few of the county's responses here. This existing features on the site limit the amount of area suitable for the pavilion project. In terms of public benefits, the county's critical area program, the Donaldson Brown Pavilion project supports UMB's mission in enhancing the use of the Donaldson Brown Mansion for events and allow for the appreciation of the Chesapeake Bay and its tributaries, and they are providing advancement for habitat on the site. The required mitigation for this project would be 0.33 acres, which will be satisfied by planting trees and shrubs both on site within the expanded critical area buffer and adjacent to the buffer to extend the forest canopy. The critical area pollutant removal requirement for the site has been calculated using the standard 10% phosphorus removal spreadsheet. The calculation resulted in a removal requirement of 0.18 pounds of phosphorus per year. The mitigation for this will be satisfied by planting 36 trees on site. And the site is otherwise in conformance with critical area regulations. Given the conditions, the site and existing uses on the sites and provided mitigation measures, staff recommends that the project be approved as proposed, and this can be seen in the staff report as well. And for that, I will open up the floor for questions and discussion.
All right, are there any questions for Katie, the county, or the county's representatives? I guess I'll start. I have a few questions. Just curious, what is the current event capacity, and will there be any capacity change, like with this new structure being installed?
Yeah, so I think that some representatives from UMB can speak more to this, but I believe right now the event capacity for the indoor events is 49 people. And if it exceeds that capacity, then the fire marshal has to get involved. So the outdoor space, I believe, will be used to hold any events larger than this. And if anybody from UMB wants to attest to what that increase looks like.
I guess I just want to clarify. So when you say 49, that's like for people inside, I guess, but I'm curious, like with the temporary tents, what has been the capacity using like the temporary tents, just trying to have an understanding if there's going to be a significant, increase, or if there will be an increase of the area being used, like just the volume the usage.
I don't know if Jennifer is, this is Kevin with UMB. So we would expect not to be exceeding what we're exceeding now, due to a limited amount of parking that we have there, so on and so forth. We only have a limited amount of parking area. So I don't think our plans are to make the events bigger. It is just to stop the temporary tenting, which is expensive and disruptive to the ground, driving stakes in the ground all the time for that. It just gives it a more permanent and not a big rush to try to be ready for weddings, conferences, the community colleges that come and visit the site and things like that. It's a permanent structure that can be used all the time.
All right, thanks for that. And I do want to note that the total area of disturbance is the 4,851, which is just under the requirement that triggers a ENS plan and stormwater requirements. Just noting that really any change in the LOD will really trigger the need for stormwater and sediment control review, and then also just pointing out that the 5,000 square feet is not the only trigger requiring stormwater or ENS review. It's also that 100 cubic yards of fill material being stored or moved on site. So I just think it's worth paying close attention to that threshold, because you're very close to that threshold where it would require an ENS plan and stormwater review.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I will be the project manager for the university that oversees if we get the approval to build this, and we will make sure that RK&K, who's been doing our work for us now, will make sure that we're staying where we need to be.
Yeah, close attention. I also wanted to ask about, since this went through the conditional approval process, it requires a public benefit component, and not only is there that piece, but the 2024 equity bill that was passed by the General Assembly specifically mandates public access. So I'm hoping that you can speak a little bit to that, because I was reading the staff report, and there was concern that the staff recommendation states the project only appears to meet the baseline conditional approval requirement. So I wanted to kind of hear a little bit more about that to see if it truly satisfies the intent of both the statute, both the COMAR conditional approval requirements and really the 2024 equity bill. So if
Jennifer, can you speak on that, Jennifer?
I can. So mostly what we do is conferences and retreats. So I know we're talking about the pavilion for weddings, but I don't want you guys just to get your mind set there. So when the governor wanted to hold his meeting here, it started out with 55 people, which was okay with a fire watch, but when it got up to 80 some, we couldn't do that. So just so you understand, like, who's been here the past year, like public wise, who is that? So we do have public history tours, which are my favorite as the historian here. That's what I kind of love. We do both public and we do private for groups. Cecil College, they actually hold classes here for native landscapes, so we can plant more native shrubs here. And that's part of our partnership with the Susquehanna Greenway. We have different gardening clubs with the Cross Country and the Highlands Society. We have Towson University has a graduate class that comes here, but it's limited in the number of students that can be part of that. Cecil County Health, we have two mental health organizations. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. One is called Voices of Hope and one is called Be My Voice. They come a few times a year, predominantly for suicide discussions and families of that. We also have the ARC. The ARC comes and does their leadership meetings here, but they also send their volunteers and their work program to come here and get a little bit twice a week to learn some lifelong skills. We have Southeastern Schools, York County Schools, University of Maryland, of course, Baltimore, Morgan State, and then with the Cecil College, they also bring their people, and Cecil County Public Schools. So this pavilion gives us the ability to have more than 49 people for a conference. So we're not turning people away.
So are the schools, when you say like, did you say like York County and there's some other counties? So are they coming there? Like, is there a fee associated with the visits? Is there?
Yes. There's always, with this mansion, usually, yes, there are fees associated with it, with the food and all of that we supply. Because we actually cook the meals.
Okay. Is there any plans like, to expand upon the public access piece?
Absolutely. And the Maryland Home and Garden Pilgrimage, if you're familiar with that, we try to do volunteers with that, with the Susquehanna Greenway, having them come in, different chambers to come in and bring their people and get a little bit more of their leaderships and conferences with that, and more classes. That's really kind of what we would like, is to be able to hold a class and have the ability to go for more than just the landscapes class and the graduate marketing class from Towson that come here.
Okay, thank you for speaking on that. Chair Fisher?
Thank you, Commissioner Robertson. And thank you to UMB for being here today. I just have two questions. One is a follow-up on Tammy's question related to public benefit. And then the second one is related to the pavilion itself. So on the public benefit piece, it's an impressive list of people. I imagine if you add up the numbers and the diversity of interests and experience and different groups of people that are coming to see the Susquehanna and the Bay and all this stuff at your site, it's really fantastic. I'm wondering, since it sounds like a lot of that programming is not environmentally oriented, have you thought about providing any passive environmental education opportunity on the site as part of this project? Maybe some signage, materials that people can take with them to understand the connection between where they've been and what they've seen and, the environment.
So if you don't mind me jumping in. So one of our, that I didn't even list, is the Maryland Big Tree Program. And evidently we have more trees on our property than anyone else. So they do come here with volunteers and things like that. And one of the things that we would love to do is actually have a pathway and labels for all of those trees. Because we're kind of proud of what we have here. The fact that our elms survived and our shingle oak and the magnolias that we have are absolutely beautiful. But I don't know what other passive ideas you have in mind, because believe you me, I am open to your ideas.
Absolutely. I'd love to explore this a little bit more, maybe after the meeting, because I know the commission, whenever there's a buffer impact, and understanding this is an expanded buffer, so it's a little bit of an unusual situation. Whenever there's a buffer impact for one of these projects, we really do look for a connection to environmental experience, education, interaction as part of that public benefit requirement. So if there is anything that we could either agree to or point towards moving forward this project that can help interpret for people what their experience is, I think that would really help the commission. I don't know that we need to land in on anything right now, but it's something that's on my mind related to this. My other question is about the pavilion itself. Right now, this area, it looks kind of like a summer space, maybe a 3-season space when the tent is closed. Is the pavilion, we saw a rendering, it looks like an open pavilion. Are we talking about an open 1 to 3 seasonal structure, or is this looking to be more of an enclosed year-round type of thing?
This will be an open structure.
It is an open structure. Yeah. That is correct.
Okay, so in terms of total impact over the course of a year, we could say it's similar to what you've got going on now.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Thank you, Co-Chair Robertson.
All right, and I have a question related to the mitigation. There's some mitigation that's occurring outside of the critical area, and it does look like there's like open space that is in the critical area. Can you speak a little bit more about how that was selected, and I guess why some of those open spaces that are located in the critical area are are off limits and not being utilized to fulfill the mitigation requirements?
Sure, I can start, and Kevin, if you want to add in, you can jump in at any time. But I think one of the main goals was to expand the existing forest canopy. So a lot of the selections were just based on where the existing forest is, and just planting that natural cluster plantings in that area. The area that is open is still used for events. So even though the pavilion will be used mainly for those events to set up tables or whatever, they do expand some of the areas outside of that, such as like yard games, depending on what the event is. Socialization. You saw some of the photos where they use that open space for ceremonies. So that is why some of that mode maintained area was not used for the mitigation. Additionally, the trees that are on the northern side of the road, there is a little bit of erosion in that area, and we wanted to plant trees just to help, intercept some of that runoff to stabilize that hillside. And I think there's like a note there that states that. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to add anything regarding the open area.
I mean, I just think to the direct backside of the mansion, tree plantings that get too tall just take away from the beauty and the view from the mansion of the Susquehanna. Once again, the area is used for photos and wedding photos and a lot of stuff out in that area. And with some of the trees that have died, off to the one side of Pavilion, replacing all those is and rebuilding that forest over on the side by there's a set of old like wading ponds over there, or pools, just to re-expand that woods over there to where it gets back to its natural beauty. I think was another reason for that we picked that area.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Patel?
Yes, so in a planning, will it be like ADA compliant where a wheelchair will need to be, will have a concrete access that takes them from the parking lot to the pavilion, like a solid surface rather than a grass?
There is an existing path that you can kind of see on the aerial that takes you from the parking lot that a wheelchair could be pushed up. We did eliminate there. Originally, we were thinking about, or UMB was thinking about installing a sidewalk from the building to the pavilion, but that was eliminated to reduce the impervious area. However, it is a flat area, so you could definitely push a wheelchair within that location.
Yeah, it's currently a brick pathway that's right to the back of the garages. You can kind of see it in this photo right along the red dashes right there, but there is a brick pathway that comes all the way up across there now.
And that connects to the pavilion for wheelchair access?
I think once the pavilion is there, they're going to be very close together to one another. And then of course we are also going to do, we're going to do some ADA mobile bathrooms as well, during the events, so that ADA people have, the ability to use ADA mobile bathrooms.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? All right, I guess we will move to the motion? May I have a motion to approve the staff recommendation for the University of Maryland Baltimore Donaldson Brown Pavilion?
Commissioner Hand so moves.
May I have a second? Motion?
Commissioner Goss, second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any commissioner denying? And finally, any commissioner abstaining? All right, with that, we can move on to our final project for the day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, the final project on today's agenda is information only. The project is the Anne Arundel County Jennifer Road Parking Lot Project. Anne Arundel County is requesting preliminary feedback from the project committee. Jamila will present the project, which I will turn it over to her now.
One second. It's being pulled up. Can everyone see it?
Yep, looking good.
All right, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamila Swadan, and I will be presenting on the draft Jennifer Road parking lot project for information only. Anne Arundel County Department of Public Works is proposing to construct a parking lot to serve the county's central holding processing center and detention center. Due to the proposed exceedance in lot coverage limits and the impacts to the critical area buffer, this project will need to come in for conditional approval. However, this project currently is being presented to you as an information only presentation, so there will be no vote at this time. The applicant is looking for general feedback on the project. And we do have representatives for the project on the call with us today, including representatives with the county. So to orient ourselves, the project site is located in Anne Arundel County. It's specifically along Jennifer Road in Annapolis, as indicated by the red pin on this map. And as I will discuss in more detail on the following slides, the proposed parking lot project will require conditional approval because the project exceeds the allowable lot coverage limit and disturbs the critical area buffer. And please keep in mind throughout this presentation that the county is looking for your preliminary feedback regarding the proposed development and mitigation and whether the current proposal addresses the requirements for conditional approval. So a little background, Anne Arundel County is proposing a new satellite parking lot with 50 parking spaces to serve the existing county's Department of Corrections Central Holding Processing Center, which was constructed in 2020 and opened in 2020, and it displaced existing parking lot. So just for an aerial imagery, this white portion of the building on the left is where the holding center was constructed. There's also an existing parking lot on the north side of Jennifer Road and west of the project site, which is undersized for current capacity. And the initial impact of the loss of parking was not realized in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, since certain activities such as visits and client reporting and volunteer programs had been canceled. However, since then, staff and visitors have struggled to find safe and suitable parking. For example, parking along the side of the road, as pictured here. The proposed parking lot will provide the center with the appropriate amount of parking for the capacity and daily activities. So the project will be taking place on a county-owned parcel, which I call Parcel 74. It is 13.42 acres and straddles Jennifer Road and is both within and outside of the critical area and partially designated as IDA and partially designated as RCA. Specifically, the project is taking place entirely within the RCA portion of the parcel as outlined here in blue. And the critical area boundary is this black line that bisects the slide. Existing lot coverage within the RCA portion of parcel 74 is currently 6 15,639 square feet and is used for the operation of county utilities. That's seen here on the right side of the slide in this orange outline. The existing forest and developed woodlands on the site is 50,510 square feet, which is 67.48% of the site. And as I just said before, the lot coverage is indicated as orange on the slide. And then there's also existing stormwater management outside of the critical area that's indicated in purple. The proposed development includes a 50-space parking lot with access to Jennifer Road for ingress and egress and a retaining wall for slope stabilization. The majority of the proposed parking lot is within the critical area buffer, which is expanded for steep slopes. And just for orientation, it's roughly this red LOD right here. The development will result in the addition of 16,623 square feet of lot coverage, which is indicated in orange, and it's all within the RCA portion of parcel 74. This will total 23,262 square feet of 23,262 square feet of total lot coverage, which is 31.05% of the site and exceeds the allowable 15% lot coverage limit for the RCA. The project also results in 10,065 square feet of clearing, which is within the clearing limits for the site. And all clearing will be occurring within the expanded buffer, which is expanded for steep slopes. So on this slide, we have our LOD in red, our lot coverage in orange, and then the buffer is delineated in green right here. The project proposes approximately 18,784 square feet of permanent disturbance to the expanded buffer. Additionally, as the project is located within the RCA, there is no critical area 10% phosphorus reduction requirement. And however, as the project is greater than 5,000 square feet, it is required to meet MDE's ESD requirements. The site is constrained by steep slopes and dense vegetation, thus making locating stormwater management on site difficult. So mitigation, as indicated by this table, the county is providing mitigation for the overage of lot coverage at a 1-to-1 rate, for the impacts to the critical area buffer at a 3-to-1 rate, for forest clearing at a 1-to-1 rate, and for temporary disturbance to the buffer at a 1-to-1 rate, which totals 81,799 square feet of required mitigation. Bringing it back to the aerial imagery, I wanted to highlight this image showing existing parcel 74 and how densely vegetated it is currently. This is making locating mitigation on site relatively difficult. So the county is proposing both on-site and off-site mitigation options. Currently for this mitigation, the county is providing 5,400 square feet of planting on-site in the form of 18 native tree plantings and 177 native shrub plantings as indicated in green on the slide. And then the county is currently exploring options for the off-site mitigation for the remaining 76,399 square feet of mitigation. The proposed project will require review by other agencies, including the Department of Natural Resources, Wildlife and Heritage Service, the Maryland Historical Trust, and the local Soil Conservation District. And presently, these reviews and authorizations are ongoing. As noted before, the project exceeds the allowable lot coverage limit and disturbs critical area buffer. Therefore, conditional approval by the commission is required. When reviewing the projects of this nature, the Critical Area Commission must consider how the proposed development addresses the requirements for the conditional approval under COMAR 270206. You can find this entire list of conditional approval requirements on pages 3 and 4 of the memo provided and the county's responses to these requirements in attachment 2. To reiterate, the total planting requirement is 81,799 square feet, and currently 5,400 square feet of plantings are located on site and proposed at this time, where the remaining is still being explored for off-site mitigation. So to open it up for discussion and feedback, we are looking for general feedback regarding the development plans and the mitigation. Specifically for offsite mitigation, are there specific considerations the county should factor into this review, such as the location of the mitigation, long-term monitoring and maintenance requirements? Will additional erosion and sediment control measures be considered due to the proximity of the site to steep slopes, wetlands, and the stream? Has the county investigated other options to provide the center with adequate parking that would avoid and or minimize impacts to the critical area RCA and other sensitive natural resources. And does the expansion of this institutional use into the RCA meet the current provisions of the county's critical area program? So with that, I will open it up to questions and turn it back to the chair. We are joined today by representatives from the county.
All right, thank you. If commissioners have any questions or comments, if they want to raise their virtual hands, guess I'll start with just the obvious question. If the county could speak on to like why expanding the existing parking space, which is located outside the critical area, like just some details on why that area is not being selected, and maybe comparing it to why the proposed location is the preferred.
I think Adam's on the call with the county. I don't know, Adam, if you want to answer that or turn it over to the team working on the plans themselves. I think they're also on the call.
Yeah, so the spot was selected, and again, there are consultants and representatives from DPW that may want to further expand on this as well, but the site for the parking lot was selected as it would be the area that would serve the institution and as well also minimize disturbance to the environmental features such as steep slopes, the expanded buffer. It was really the only spot where, you know, there was flat ground to possibly put try to put the parking lot into. The rest of the surrounding area is very encumbered with steep slopes.
Have you thought about actually building a garage? Was that discussion? Did that occur?
I would leave that up to DPW to speak to. Sharon A., are you on the call?
This is Gus. That was the problem with the budget, available budget.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, your response?
Yes, the problem was available budget.
So it was a budget restraint?
Yes.
And so this is Pete Stone from Panoni to kind of tag on to Adam's response. The existing parking lot immediately abuts steep slopes, stream buffers, and so on. So there weren't any opportunities to expand that. And it also has got some stormwater facilities that are immediately adjacent to that kind of limit the ability to expand that existing parking lot. But that was looked at.
And so just going back to the parking garage, like what really was that price difference? Like what do you have like a ballpark of what the increase would be to the project?
We don't have that. We don't have that information ready now, but we can give it forward to you later.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hands?
Yeah, thank you. In terms of the configuration of the current parking lot, it was a little bit difficult for me to see from the initial images. It seemed like there's a lot of pavement on site in general. It's hard to tell the slope of that pavement and whether or not reconfiguring existing lots to accommodate more parking with maybe less drive around circling in a way that could be beneficial. I'm concerned about a couple of things. I mean, one, this is RCA, and a parking lot across the street from an institution doesn't really seem within the scope of the kinds of things we would normally take a look at? And also in terms of the number of spots, how is 55 spots decided upon? And where are those 55 cars parked currently? Are they on the grass at that location? Or is it not actually 55 additional cars that would need to be housed regularly?
This is Gus again. No, there is no opportunity to park in the grass area now. So what they park is on the road, and sometimes when it's about rush hours for the meeting or seeing the block person, they also park in the hospital. That is not very good. Yeah.
Are those lots also across the street?
Just to expand on what Gus was saying, you know, a lot of the parking overflow for the detention center, that parking is being currently, you know, put on the road, on Jennifer Road, which is within a biking lane and pedestrian walkway. So there are cars being parked in those areas, which create a safety concern for pedestrian traffic, having those cars taking up those lanes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And there are typically 55 cars out there parked on the road on the daily?
So the amount of parking was just arrived at based on what could actually fit on the site. I mean, I'm sure there's probably additional vehicles, but we could only fit, I think, 50 spaces is the number that was put out there. That was all that was able to be fit on the proposed parking lot location.
My question is, currently, are there approximately 50 vehicles parked along Jennifer Road?
Yeah, they park on the road and also hospital. So what the detention center wants, they want the maximum space available. They even wanted more than 55, but this site can just provide 55. One of the problem right now is a lot of them, they're going to park in the hospital as a long walk, and they have to cross the road, and people just complain about that one. And the existing parking lot you show there is just for the staff. They cannot give it to the visitors.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Sure.
I have a question related to stormwater management structures. I feel like when I looked at the diagram, it's over it's a half an acre. Like I think it was like the parking lot will be like 20,000 square feet. Is there any stormwater management features associated with the new construction? As I didn't see any on the plans, and I would assume that for that size, there would need to be stormwater management.
So Gus and Adam, I'll take this. So there is no stormwater proposed on this location. The DPW is working internally to offset stormwater through one of their other watershed protection and restoration projects. So we've calculated kind of what the stormwater volume is, and they've got several other projects, I believe, in this watershed that are going to offset stormwater for this location.
But where's the stormwater? But where's the stormwater going to go? I mean, it has to be treated prior to discharging. So
again, there's no stormwater proposed for this project. It's being handled as an offset for another restoration project that DPW is doing in the same watershed. There is storm drainage proposed for this project, and there will be an adequate outfall to ensure that we're not that erosion and things like that are managed. But there's actually no stormwater management for this specific project.
sorry, I'm just thinking about those comments. So there's no way of tying into like the existing stormwater features that are associated with the existing parking lot?
Those are, no, I mean, they're sized for that parking lot, and they're also uphill of this site.
So I guess what I'm hearing though is that stormwater associated with the new parking lot is not going to be treated in any way, but will be a direct discharge to like some conveyance system.
Correct.
And Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, the stormwater management that, would be managed on site is going to be managed and, essentially, managed off-site at another location for whatever this site would have needed.
Correct. And I believe it's in the same watershed. That's kind of the internal DPW discussions that are going on.
It is in the same watershed.
Commissioner Hans?
Is this site accessible via public transportation, and has there been any discussion of using some kind of transportation agreement to carry folks between potentially hospital or an off-site parking area?
We have to get back.
We don't have that information. We have to get back to you.
Commissioner Hans, I was typing. Wow, can you repeat your question? Because something actually popped up like with words that I heard, and I don't know if you maybe covered it. So if you could repeat, that would be appreciative.
Yeah, no problem. I guess it's kind of two questions. One, is this site accessible via existing public transportation? And two, has the county investigated a partnership with another off-site parking option, whether that's the hospital or another county-owned property where shuttle service could be provided?
Okay. Yeah, no, I think what I had heard bits and pieces of yours, and I was thinking the shuttle service too as like a consideration. So, okay. Chair Fisher?
Thank you, Co-Chair Robertson. And thank you to the county for coming in today. I think these early discussions really help. They certainly help on our end. Hopefully you find them helpful as well. A lot of what I was going to ask has been covered. I do want to follow up on this idea of shared space. I know the fire station is right there, and it looks from the aerial like there's a fair amount of impervious surface on the ground already. I didn't know if the question has been asked of them whether shared parking could occur at the fire station, or even perhaps, I guess they're uphill in terms of stormwater, but on the parking side, is there any opportunity there?
So my understanding from this middle is that they do use some of the fire station parking too, Adam, or Chair Fisher, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Guskart, can you speak to that?
Yeah, we talked previously with the fire station. They didn't have any available space for us for detention center.
Okay. It might be helpful to see a little bit more detail on that at some point.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess my two more fundamental questions. One is, does this have to be in the critical area? Would it be possible to flip the stormwater facility for the existing lot and this parking proposal? In other words, build on the stormwater facility for the impervious and then put as much stormwater treatment as you can get in the critical area portion. We generally prefer the softer stuff inside the critical area and the harder stuff outside, if and when that's possible. it would also bring the parking closer to the facility. I mean, this is going to be a significant walk uphill for people.
And it would also allow for like water treatment, like stormwater treatment of like the new area for the stormwater to be treated.
Hey, Joel, do you know if that's something you guys have looked at? I mean, I can respond from a technical standpoint and say that we haven't looked at that, but just looking at the site plan, I think that may be feasible. At some level, it's going to involve more than likely putting some of the stormwater underground as opposed to having a surface pond. So I don't know what's been looked at. Benoni was brought in kind of midway through this project, so I don't know the whole history of this and what was looked at as far as different configurations or options, or what restrictions may be in place on that existing parking lot, aside from a technical kind of perspective.
All right, any other thoughts on the proposed project? Jen?
Hi, yes, I just wanted to note on this, if they are considering or thinking about the stormwater treating the parking lot within the critical area, but the parking lot outside the, providing stormwater within the critical area to treat the parking lot outside, it would still may need a conditional approval because you're utilizing the RCA to treat an impervious surface outside. That's for an institutional use. Just to put that out there for the project committee. And then also, if we have time, I would like to understand the county's mitigation aspect. Where do they have any options currently to fulfill the remaining almost 2 acres of mitigation?
My conversations with the consultants, Jennifer, is that they're still looking at off-site mitigation within the same watershed, but they haven't really pinned anything particularly down, but those things are currently being looked at.
Just speaking for a little bit of experience with the Cape Sinclair Fire Station project, there was guidance of trying to provide mitigation closer to the impact site or within the same watershed. I don't know if the project committee would have any other or additional guidance if there hasn't been a location identified yet to give to the county.
Chair Fisher?
Yep, if there's a response to if there's any further response to Jen's question, I don't want to run that over. I do have one final question. I know we're getting close to time.
Okay, well, maybe go ahead and yeah, we can end with your final question.
Okay. So just a note to pick up on Commissioner Hans. I know there is a bus stop right on site, smack in between the parking lot and the jail. So or the detention facility. I think there is, it's worth following up on that in terms of the potential there to enhance the public transportation access as an alternative or a complement to this. Question being, Jen mentioned the idea of needing a conditional approval with the stormwater, even if it were in, and I think that really does put a fine point on the use question. And I don't know if we have everyone on this call that we would need to answer that, but do we have a problem here, like with allowable use in the RCA? Because generally the parking lot would be considered an accessory to this institutional use. And I don't think that that use is permitted in the RCA.
Commissioner Bradford?
Yeah, similar question. I was kind of wondering, like,
a reason why this wouldn't be mapped as IDA, just based upon the logistics on where it's at and what's going on there. I'm surprised it's not already IDA. Just a comment.
Yeah, I don't know why it's mapped RCA, David, but the institutional use question, that's a good point that you guys raised, and that is something that we're looking at. And to my knowledge, I don't think that we have anything in our code that states that that would be a permitted use. So it might be something that needs to be included as another item for the conditional approval, but it's something that we're still combing through.
All right, I think seeing no other hands raised, maybe a good time to just kind of summarize and highlight some of the comments that were provided today. I think we'll just ensuring that all areas and options such as, like parking garages are evaluated, and that those structures, looking at those options that are outside of the RCA, looking at the current parking lot and seeing if there's some, additional parking spaces that could be added to the existing parking lot if there was some kind of a redesign that would allow for more parking spaces. Just noting that stormwater is stormwater related to the new parking lot is still under review, and that there will most likely be a direct discharge or there'll be a direct discharge with, I guess the current configuration is that wouldn't be going through a stormwater management feature. Recommendation to look at public transportation and shuttle services as an option to eliminate the need for the additional parking lot and other locations where like a shuttle service could potentially be provided or shared space. Looking at maybe switching the current stormwater management feature with the proposed parking lot, which would just noting that it would still most likely require conditional approval. And I guess the final bullet that I have is that the proposed project, it's uncertain if the structure is a permitted use in the RCA. So there's still, I think, some homework related to that is needed. Does anybody want to highlight any other bullets or items to be mentioned for consideration by the county? All right. Does the county have any questions for commission staff? Hearing none, I think the final agenda item for today is that we can conclude the project committee meeting, and that the full commission will meet in person at 1 on December 17th in Crownsville. And I hope to see everyone there in person.
Thank you, Andy.
All right. All right. Bye-bye.